if I'm not mistaken. I think so. But
Right.
uh, how important was his teaching? Because you talked about the dirty Moors. How important do you vibe with his teaching? How important was his teaching do you think to our people?
His teaching was the edification that he brought about. I mean, like I said, it teaches you. His teaching teaches you about the socio-political aspect of civics, and
Mm,
it goes into a little bit of theology, but it was basically to bring you out of that concept in itself, because he knew that you had the Jesuit dirty Moors. That's why he was, tapping into many different denominations of the Moorish paradigm.
mm,
So like I said, he was just trying to find out. He was like the spook who sat by the door.
mm.
He's the one he was galvanizing all the information to bring us out of the situation of dogmatic belief systems and things of that nature.
No, indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. Well, once again, family, shout out to everybody tuned in. We got almost 3,000 people in the building. If you came in late, a new brother is on the channel, BDELL, awesome young brother. Tell the people your YouTube channel before we continue, brother.
My YouTube channel is BDELL1014. It's the same title as my name on the screen. That's my Instagram name, and then I'm I'm Brydell Rice Bay on Facebook.
You got a cash app, BDELL, for people who may want to support you financially?
Well, let me say this for first thing.
Yeah.
I don't put out the edification for money, so I would never, try to monetize off my people. But I do have a cash app. It's $ Brydell Rice,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
BRYDELLRICE.
Let's see.
And the reason I say that is because, we've been indoctrinated. We spent thousands and thousands of dollars to be indoctrinated by the education system. So it's
Yeah.
only right to give people the edification for free.
I got you. I definitely somebody asked your cash app earlier, so I definitely want them to support what you're doing. So definitely if you would like to support the brother, hit the brother's cash app, $BRYDELLRICE. And if you got some questions, I'm asking brother a few more questions, but get the questions ready, family. We about to hit the hour mark in a little while. We're gonna get to some more questions, family. So definitely give us some questions. What can you tell me about this? You talked about the moon and the dark side of the moon. What's your thoughts on this Lilith energy?
Which is as far as like the Lilith energy, as far as like the divine feminine energy.
Yeah, yeah.
What I was saying is when you have a pole shift is basically magnetic north merging with true north. So when that happens, you have the vibrational frequency of the Schumann resonance spike. It operates at 13.13 megahertz frequency.
Mm,
So 13 is also esoterically connected to the divine feminine energy, and it's
mm,
a karmic number. So that Lilith energy is a fourth dimensional energy when you have that open vortex in March 23rd, or it's going to happen in August. So,
mm.
like I said, this is a transmutation process of nature taking back the planet. So this is why you're going to see a lot more floods. This is why everything in California is starting to flood up.
Mm.
So because through the laws of physics, anything that dissipates in nature must come back.
How does this divine feminine energy that you brought up several times affect males, my brother?
Well, it gets rid of this. Well, because of patriarchy. Patriarchy is what thrown everything out of balance. Because the inception of everything started with a matrilineal system. So when they came up with these monotheistic belief systems, when they came up with anything that's conducive to subjugating a woman, that threw the whole planet out of balance, which creates a reversal in the gender role frequency.
Mm,
When you have a reversal in the gender role frequency, now the woman has to take up on the energy of the man, and
mm,
the man, wants to become the woman, because everything they do as far as like a patriarchal energy, just like the Statue of Liberty,
mm,
that's a what? That's a really a man.
mm.
A lot of
What,
people don't know that,
the
but they
Statue of
really,
Liberty? The Statue of Liberty, yeah? Could you
yeah.
explain that? You elaborate on that?
Well, the Mona Lisa and the Statue of Liberty, they're basically one and the same.
Mm,
But like I said, it's the everything they do, they steal the birthright from the woman. because the women, like I said, the inception of everything that started was based on a matriarchy.
So
like
what? Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was about to ask, because you talked about the Statue of Liberty being a man. Even going back to ancient Kemet, when you see some of the pictures of Akhenaten, and he got like wide hips like a woman, why do you think Akhenaten was he was portrayed as like a man with woman, with like a figure of a woman?
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Yeah, have you noticed that? Have you seen any of the pictures
before? But it's never sparked anything to my to me raise a question within myself to to do a deep dive on that information.
No, definitely, man. Once again, family. Somebody asked, what did somebody just ask? I just seen a good question. Well, let me ask this one. Somebody wants to know, what is the god? Where is this at? What is the god Osiris's role in history related to humans?
Well, the god Osiris's role. Well, I know as far as humans, I know the great majority of Black people, when we're born, we have a Mongolian spike, and I know that Osiris was green. So that's our connection as far as like so-called Black people, because the difference between Black people and chlorophyll is one magnesium particle. So we also have that connection, because when we fell in frequency, this created this process of how we when we breathe in this oxidation, that breaks down the hemoglobin cellular structure, and that hemoglobin cellular structure puts you in a low vibrational frequency to the point where you start to age, and to the point where your genes break down and rust. So that's why I was saying, like, our connection on a biological level, that is one of our connections to Osiris.
Indeed. Somebody wants to know, what about the increase of UV rays from the sun and its CME activity?
Well, when you have these coronal mass ejections, these solar flares, like I told you, it's scientifically proven that 7 also activates the neural synapses. So, like I said, the intrinsic solar radiation is gamma radiation, and gamma radiation, when it amalgamates with the carbon body, it creates this energy and frequency of Holy Ghost particles, which are nitroids. So this is where you get your personification of a Christ consciousness.
You said Holy Ghost particles. Say, yeah. What was the Holy Ghost? That sounded interesting. What's the Holy Ghost particles?
Nitroids, pure nitrogen, nitroids, solar radiation, amalgamating with the carbon body.
What do you think about the word DEA? I heard Yaki and Rashad Jamal reference DEA instead of DNA.
To carbon, DEA. So that's basically the delineation from DNA. Now, anything that has like 6 ether and 7 ether genes, which is recessive genetics, that's the demographic with DNA. When you have carbon coating skin and you have the ether to connect to the energetic imprint of the universe.
But then if we close it, you know what I'm saying? It looked like, you can almost have an infinity. That's
the download right there.
Yeah, that's the download, family. So what's your thoughts on the infinity symbol in X then?
Well, from my perspective, I think the infinity symbol, a lot of people say it's a representation of infinite energy, but I think it's connected to the fact that it's bringing you back into a timing loop. It's basically like another way to where they use cause and effect, like through a Hegelian dialectic principle. They create circumstances on the planet to bring about a certain agenda. It's like they keep bringing about these psychological operations. So the X is also the representation of a form of transformation to where you're not acclimated to the energy of the time loop, because the time loop of the matrix system, when you understand the mechanisms of it, everything is derived on a ley line grid system, right? So that means that when you're born into the matrix, when you're born into sin, it's not a coincidence that our hands is also connected to the ley line grid system. We're born in the matrix system. You're basically encrypted on a certain geographical areas on this planet to where you're not able to reap the benefits of ascension. So now, when you're talking about that X is also the symbology of your so-called great awakening, because they know that these new energies that's coming in has a centripetal or an centrifugal forces that has a tetrahedron energy.
Right. No, I had to wipe the.
Oh, okay.
I'm just, you're talking, and I'm like, things is coming to me like a lot of, like, as far as this X. I remember it was either Rod Hayes or wait, let me get rid of this. Or a couple of people said that in the middle of your hand, because you mentioned your hand, most of us have a X. Where's it at? Right, it's right there, family. You see that? Y'all see that, family? So right in the middle of our hand, the majority of us have an X. There's no getting around this X, bro.
Right.
It's everywhere. And it's in both of my hands, dead center in the middle of my hand. There's an X on each palm. And I remember, Rod, I forgot what they said about that, but I just thought about that when you was talking. But BDELL, besides that, and that's, you know, y'all making a lot of connections in the chat. If y'all remember what Rod Hayes or whoever, it was Rod Hayes, right? Yeah. If you're the Mystic Cross, if y'all remember what he said, let me know in the chat, because we just making breakthroughs, and I see y'all on it tonight, and I appreciate it. But you talk a lot about Planet X, BDELL. So since we talking about X, Elon Musk, X, Company X, the X with the solar eclipse and all this stuff with the X, what's the deal with Planet X, right? What's going on? What's the update on Planet X right now, my brother?
When you look at it from biblical context, whether it's in the Old Testament or New Testament, they call it the destroyer or nemesis. In Hopi mythology, they call it the red star Kachina, which is equated to the red sun being a detoxifier. So there is a great purification process. So meaning that these new energies that's coming in, that's activated by the sun, that is connected to a prophetic event that's going to be taking place. So it has to be a spiritual reset, it has to be an economic reset, and it has to be a great reset when you're talking about the mental encryption of the matrix system that was controlled by the corporate system. So everything on the planet is going to be reset. So the X is also, like I said, it's the symbology of transformation. So you're going from a reverse of frequency. You're going from a patriarchal energy all the way back into a matriarchal energy. Because I told you the X is acclimated to the woman. That's the divine feminine energy. So it's not a coincidence that when you have the Schumann resonance spike, it goes from 7.86 megahertz frequency to 13.13 megahertz frequency. 13 is the queen mother seed. That's the divine feminine energy.
So if go ahead, brother.
So like I said, it's not a coincidence that everything is connected to, you know, the symbology of X. That's the new energies that's coming in. Everything is being activated and galvanized by Mother Nature.
Somebody said, books I've read stated X on the hand means mystic or magician. The number you have means how powerful you are. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I see y'all see a lot of interesting things in the chat. That's why I started out the show thinking y'all make this show very good. It's not just me and the speaker. Y'all in the chat add a lot. So I want to thank y'all for making this an amazing platform. Wow, this is a very interesting, turned out to be a very interesting discussion, my brother. The last thing I asked you about was the Planet X. What I want to ask you now, my brother, is since if we could say we're going into the frequency of X, which represents this divine feminine energy, what letter would you say the age of Pisces represented? Would it represent a Y? Because the Y has like a missing piece of the X, it seems like that. So would you say we left the Y and we're going to the X? Like what letter did we just leave, would you say? If we had to use a letter to represent ages.
I would say, yeah, I agree with it, because it's another form of patriarchy trying to combat the energy of a matriarch. So it's not a coincidence that, like I said, the Y is actually a broken X, because when you understand genetic mutation, 2.8% of the woman's chromosome is what created man through parthenogenesis. So this is just from my own independent research and just from my own perspective. I really think that when you talk, I'm going all the way back to the triple X. I really believe that at one point in time, women on the planet during the inception of time, they had 3 X chromosomes instead of 2. And the reason I say that is because I know that it's connected to your sex, your energy has something to do with your spirituality. And when you amalgamate the two, that's when you have the ability to perform parthenogenesis to create another species on the planet without a man being present. So that X is actually connected to the Bathari gland, these X energies, X solar flares. So these coronal mass ejections that's coming in, that activates the Bathari gland when you're talking about Planet X, because Planet X is also connected to Hopi mythology. So that is contains a quark star energy, and that quark star energy has the ability to take you to a different space and time. And that different space and time, when you break down the word bara in cuneiform, bara means space and time. So you activating a certain neurological functions that's connected to the mental plane, which is the heavens.
Damn, brother, you powerful. Wow. So if we say, let's say BDELL, let's say we're talking about planet X and we're talking about this connection with X to the divine feminine, would you say X is a planet full of women? Because I've heard Isis Wisdom, I believe, say that there's certain places, you know, in the cosmos where there's just women civilizations. So is it a possibility that planet X is an all-woman planet?
I don't think so. I think it's the personification of equality.
Okay.
Like real equality, not the perception of equality that's based on duality that we live in the three-dimensional matrix system, because there's no such thing as equality here. So that's why you got injustice and things of that nature. But I think that, you know, the abode of the heavens, or planet X, or whatever you want to call it, Nemesis or the red star Kachina, I think from my perspective, I think it's the symbology of balance. Like I said, you got just as much women you got there, you got a masculine energy there as well. To level everything out.
Indeed. Have you ever studied mudras and stuff like that?
No, I've never got into that.
Okay.
I've never got into that. I that's one of my things I want to get into. I've never tapped into that energy yet.
No, indeed. I'm just curious, for the people that are in the mudras, does anybody do mudras with X? I'm pretty interested if anybody out there does mudras with X.
But it's definitely a spiritual significance, because when you look at Osiris, the sun god, some of the Egyptian pharaohs, when they mummified, they in the X.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely we could go on and on about this. We could go on and on about this. And even the correct Confederate flag has the X on it, and they said that came from us.
Yeah, the Confederate flag is connected to some of the 5 civilized tribes that's connected to the Olmecs and stuff and things of that nature. When you're talking about the Iroquois Nation, so that X flag is actually a galactic flag. So they know that the inception of the indigenous cultures, when you're talking about the Choctaw, Wichita, the Yamansi tribes, these are all matriarchal civilizations. That's the thing. And I told you, X is also connected to a matriarch because it's under a sun cycle. I told you Osiris is the sun god, which is also a representation of the symbology of X.
Do you think you know, somebody earlier mentioned SpaceX? We're talking about Planet X, and we're talking about all these things with space, the X and the chemtrails. Do you think that that's like maybe like a galactic flag? I think you just said this. Maybe it's like a flag. Like if you want to communicate to entities, they trying to wave that flag, and that's how they're like, you know, that's how they're like communicating with them. So it's, you know, like we got the United States flag, we got the Confederate flag. All these countries have flags. Is that like the cosmic flag, this X in the sky? Is that like the ultimate cosmic flag, you think, right there?
Well, from my perspective, I think I think they use that flag was created by Ashtar Command, and that is your galactic Federation of Light. That is basically the negative aspects of the Pleiadians or whatever. But because I know they work in symbiotic connection with the deep state shadow government, and that deep state shadow government are the ones who created the SpaceX force. So they also, I think it's they changed the symbolism behind it. It's actually an Egyptian symbol on the SpaceX force flag. I'm not sure yet. But I think they changed it.
What's the deal with the Galactic Federation of Light? How many different galactic federations are there?
So you got the Intergalactic Federation, which is galvanized by the Hollow Earth concept. When you're talking about the city of Shambhala and Argartha and the Rainbow City, or the Crystal City inside the planet. So you got the Intergalactic Confederation. Then you got the Galactic Federation, but the Galactic Federation of Light is your Pleiadian. That is the Pleiadian sector of Ashtar Command, and they are the ones that was working with Hitler. He's the one that gave them the genognostic philosophy on how to clone and things of that nature. But the Galactic Federation is basically many different entities, not just your subjected to the Anunnaki, but you got many different entities that come to from different star constellations, basically collaborating together, and they come together like a United Nations.
I had a question. I forgot. Y'all on fire in the chat. Y'all, they like dropping gems in the chat. I really appreciate. I really appreciate all y'all in the chat. You did talking about the African. They say a lot of African and Dinka symbols are X. They just got a lot of good info in the chat tonight. This person even has an X as their avatar, so that's quite interesting.
Yes, representation of transformation and rebirth, death and destruction, harbinger of afflictions that's going to be taking place. So, like I said, I understand. Like a lot of people understand the concept of Judgment Day. It's not only subjected to doom and gloom or whatever, but like I said, for the people who are basically connected to this planet, it's a time of time to rejoice and be happy for that. Because, like I said, it's a restoration of power. It's a transformation of power.
We talked about X a lot. This pretty much this whole show. We even mentioned Y. What can you tell me about the frequency of Z? Because it's usually those three letters, X, Y, Z. X, Y. They always like we got all the letters, but X, Y, Z. Those are like three special letters that come at the very end of the alphabet that stand on their own. So what can you tell me? Is there anything you know about Z in particular?
Z is also the representation of the unification of the divine feminine and divine masculine energy.